I am about 6 years late to the party, but I finally purchased and started playing Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, which is a crazy title. I guess most people just call it Fallen Order, but maybe I'll make a separate video talking about this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to talk about titles. We'll talk about that next time. But I've been playing Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, and I've always loved Star Wars. I grew up playing the Lego Star Wars games, and I played Battlefront 1 and 2 on the Xbox, and we had, my brother and I had Star Wars action figures out the wazoo that we would play with. I mean, so much fun. Star Wars is very near and dear to me, despite the fact that it's hard for me to find Star Wars content that I actually enjoy in movies or whatever, especially movies or shows. I've not much cared for any shows that I've seen or any new Star Wars content in a very long time. Andor's good, but that's a topic for another time. But I've been playing through Jedi Fallen Order, and I'm enjoying it. I enjoy the obvious pages that they've taken from Dark Souls in terms of, or the Souls-like genre in terms of the world exploration and the gameplay mechanics and the resting and all that. But as I was playing through this game, it just got me thinking about Star Wars as a whole and games that we've seen in Star Wars, and the thought I had was, what an incredibly ripe franchise to make video games out of, and yet so often I feel that it's kind of shafted, or it's got mediocre games. Okay, well, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, it's had some bangers of games. I mean, I remember playing Force Unleashed on the PSP about years ago, and obviously the Knights of the Old Republic, all those games are super beloved, which super excited for the new one, by the way, that they announced at the last Game Awards. But I don't know, it's such a rich and vibrant world, universe, that galaxy, I suppose, that it's such a rich and vibrant galaxy, and there's so much there to work with, and I'm always so bummed out whenever the games that come out for Star Wars are constrained to these. It's always the Empire or the Clone. Don't get me wrong, I love the Clone Wars, and anytime they choose to make a Clone Wars thing, I'm gonna be eating that up. But which is why I guess I'm happy that there's things like the Old Republic too. There's other worlds that are being, or other time periods that are being explored. But I wish there was. Pardon me, my phone's going off. It's my amazing girlfriend texting me. But I love Star Wars. It's so important to me. It was such a pivotal thing for me growing up, for my creativity and for the games that I played and the ways that I had fun and it connected with my family and brothers and stuff like that. And so anytime, I feel like we haven't had gold. We haven't had Star Wars gold in a long time. No hate to the Fallen Order games, or Fallen Order so far, and I haven't played the next one. What's Survivor, I think is what the sequel to Fallen Order is. No hate to either of those games, actually. I mean, so far I'm really enjoying Fallen Order, but it's not great. I don't think it's great. I think it's good. I think it's so far good. Maybe my opinion on that will change as I go through or beat the game, but so far, good game. Solidly made. There's some cracks and some seams that you can see, especially with just some of the visuals. But the game's six years old. I'm not expecting it to be totally, completely, devoid of any, or lacking any faults or anything. But anyway, I think that it's been a while since we've had a great Star Wars game, and that's a shame because Star Wars is so huge. Maybe that's the issue. Maybe I have a theory about games nowadays and the game industry. The saying that it's too big to fail, right? That's a saying that people say, oh, it's too big to fail. It's too big to fail. My theory is that in the entertainment world, the opposite happens, where it's too big to succeed. It's too big so it will fail. I sometimes wonder if the reason why we don't get good Star Wars is because making a Star Wars game is going to be the most difficult thing, because you've got Disney to deal with and these, all this red tape. So maybe that's why it's hard to make the Star Wars games, and I'm sure it's not an easy thing. Game making isn't easy, but especially if you have to deal with corporate bigwigs that are kind of making things harder. But it breaks my heart a little bit. My brother and I were on a very long road trip one time, and we were just talking and driving, and we chatted about, if we had a Star Wars game, what would we want it to be? And I'll admit, our ideas were not the most original. We were like, oh, the Clone Wars is great. We love the Clone Wars. Awesome, yes. I love seeing new stuff, but the Clone Wars is the best because the clones are the best. So we were like, okay, well, have it set during the Clone Wars. And we were like, we'd like to see a Jedi. We'd like to see a Jedi character, but we'd like to see it done a little differently. To make you... this game really makes you feel like a Jedi. But we were thinking about it, and we thought, how amazing would it be if, when you're playing as a Jedi, you feel like you're watching that scene from Revenge of the Sith. The fight scene between Obi-Wan and Anakin. That is such a magical scene. Those movies are ridiculous. All of the movies are ridiculous, but that scene is so magical to watch. Because you say, oh, this is what Jedi fight like. That's amazing. If we could find a way to blend that fantastic Jedi, acrobatic, incredibly lithe, sword fighting action with a really interesting Force mechanic that, I don't know, I just feel like we're always so limited with our Jedi in these games. I always feel like I feel like they're nerfing me. I feel like they're not making me feel like a Jedi. I always feel like I'm weaker than I'm supposed to be. And that bums me out. It's a bummer. We thought it would be cool to have like your own platoon of soldiers that you're working with, in the Clone Wars. It's getting real nerdy, but that's what this channel is, obviously. But in the Clone Wars, I just watched the show recently, the Clone Wars show, which is very good, by the way. But I watched it, and I loved how, all the Jedi had their own troopers. Plo Koon had Wolf, and Anakin had Rex, and Obi-Wan had Cody, and all of these Jedi have their own guys, and their own squadrons that they work with. Now, how cool would it be to have a squadron of clone troopers that you as a Jedi are working with, actively working with, like all the time, not just like you see them sometimes, but you are actively on the battlefield with your clones. If there was a way to make it even a little XCOM-y, where you could, the game is called XCOM, it's not called XCOM-y. I was gonna make a joke, but XCOM is like a kind of tactical game a little bit. I wouldn't want you to get bogged down in the tactics of it. But if there was a way to make it so you could kind of tell your clones what to do, and they could support you as a Jedi while you're at the front lines fighting droids, that could be really, I think, delightful to play. And we get blips and bits of that when you play games like Battlefront, the new Battlefronts or the old Battlefronts. The new Battlefronts in particular are good, but I think that there's untapped treasure, untouched treasure in Star Wars, and I feel like it could be real special to tap into it, to figure out what makes Star Wars so cool and turn it into a game. I think we've seen people come really close. I think Force Unleashed was great, and Battlefront games have that scale that's really fun, and the visuals and the grandeur. And Fallen Order has a fun story and fun kind of engaging combat and gameplay, but they all feel like they've had to sacrifice something to get something else, and maybe that's just game design, and it's just tricky. You can't make an Omni game that's everything that you want in a game all in one game. That's just not feasible. You have to kind of choose like an aspect and lean into it, and so I get that, but I don't know if there could be a game where you're playing as a Jedi with the clones on some cool planet that we've seen a few times, but we haven't. It's like No More Tatooine. we don't need to keep going to Tatooine. It's a desert. Like the fact that that planet has been latched onto like a teat is crazy to me because it's just a desert. You can only interact with Jabba the Hutt so many times. You can only have so many Sarlacc pits. But do something. Do a planet you don't see a whole lot of. You could do some of the mainstays in Battlefront, Felucia or something like that. But what if you did something that was only mentioned a couple times, or it was only in the Clone Wars show once? Go to Christophsis. Go to Seleucami or Ryloth even. And I feel like it would be just really tremendous. I feel like it could be a really wonderful opportunity to embrace what makes Star Wars so cool, because it's the Jedi. I mean, like, if we're being honest, the Jedi and the Force is like, it's cool, it's awesome. Anyway, I'd love a cool Star Wars game. I hope that the new Old Republic I hope that new one is good. We'll see. Obviously, we don't really have much to go on right now. I'm sure that all of the people who are super into the weeds with the lore saw everything. Went, oh, I know what that is. I don't know what it was. I saw the lightsaber. I said, cool. I'm like a mild Star Wars fan. I know enough to get through a conversation, but the moment someone starts talking about, the Old Republic and Darth Booty Cheeks and how he invented lightsaber stuff, like I don't know. I'm in the dark there. But I guess just when you love something, you want to see it flourish, and nothing makes me sadder than seeing Star Wars Bounty Hunter. No, not Bounty Hunter. Bounty Hunter was a good game. Star Wars Outlaw, the Ubisoft one. Nothing makes me sadder than seeing a game like Outlaws, and you just feel like they're not committing to anything. They got a finger in every pie, but they're too scared to take the whole pie, to take a bite. It's not in for a penny, in for a pound. They're like in for a penny, in for a quarter ounce, and that's just Ubisoft in general, in my opinion, my humble opinion. But I don't know. It just disappoints me. I love Star Wars. I truly love the franchise. Do I think it's good all the time? No. In fact, I think a good 80% of Star Wars is not like content out there. Is maybe like 65 is not very good. Even the movies, even the original movies, they're not these holy bibles of sci-fi literature or storytelling. They're pretty weird and not always the best. But I love Star Wars. It's so important to me, and I would love to see someone do it right and do right by it. Anyway, I'm enjoying Star Wars Fallen Order right now, and it's a good game, but I think it could be better. I think Star Wars could be better. I think there's a lifeblood that only Star Wars has, that no other sci-fi story has, and I feel like sometimes that blood is missed when people make games of Star Wars. So anyway, this was definitely one of my more rambly videos. I didn't really have much of a point or any talking notes. I don't normally have talking points. I normally just sit down and start talking and see where I go. But it's late at night, so I'm kind of tired at this point. So that's probably why it's been so rambly. But anyway, yeah, Star Wars. I would love to hear other people's thoughts. If anyone has any thoughts on Star Wars in general. And Star Wars fans are rabid. I'm sure that if enough people, like, if the wrong people saw this, they'd get rabid for whatever, You can't say that about whatever. I get that. I know it's a beloved franchise for people like me, but anyway. I'm going to go to bed, so farewell, good night. Au revoir, auf Wiedersehen. Trying to think if there's anything else I'm forgetting. Not really, no. Star Wars is great. I love Star Wars. Thank you, George Lucas. Okay, good night. Bye-bye.